But in spite of the lockdown and the restrictions, there are enough builders who have done well in the market in these testing times as well, and there are some who have not, right? And many have struggled as well to get site visits and sales going. So in a situation like this, we all understand now that the virus is here to stay for a while. It's not going away in a week's time or 10 days time, right? And that's unfortunately the reality for the whole country. And to keep the business going, getting transactions going for real estate developers is obviously critical. We have to find a way out to get sales back, to keep increasing the site visits, keep the numbers clicking. And it's very, very clear that some things will have to be done differently by all of us. In this audience today, we have a lot of builders, we have their marketing teams, their sales teams. We have a lot of channel partners and brokers joining us from across the country. And they are very, very keen to know that as sellers, as suppliers, what is it that they need to do differently, right? And to help answer, some of their questions as to how to close transactions better, what to do differently in the current real estate, scenario during the lockdown and as the lockdown is easing. I have a very interesting panel for us from across the country. A lot of experts with a lot of experience in the domain. I'd like to introduce Varun Gupta, Director, Ashiana Housing. Welcome, Varun. Arya Sumant, Managing Director at Eden Realty Group, joining us from Calcutta. Shantanu Mazumdar, Director, Knight Frank, joining us from Bangalore. Shailesh Puranik, Managing Director at Puranik Builders, joining us from Bombay. So welcome, Varun, Arya, Shantanu, Shailesh. Welcome to the webinar. I think the audience is very, very keen to hear, straight talk from you. Give them great tips to sell better, to get more site visits going. What to do differently in this tight scenario that all of us find ourselves in. So without further introductions, I'll get started. For everyone's benefit, we will have a open Q&A round as well towards the end of this webinar. We will be live for around an hour and 20-25 minutes. So please keep your questions, going. We've already received a lot of questions from all of you across the country in the last 4-5 days. But if you have any more questions, please do type them in as you participate in this webinar. So, and last thing, from an admin perspective, we'll also do a few live polls as our panelists share some of their views and see what the audience has to say about those. So once in a while, you may see a few questions pop up on your screen. So please don't get distracted by that. They will go away, in a few seconds after they pop up. Yeah. Okay. So, let's start, with some opening comments from our panelists here, right? I'd like to, hear from each one of you as to, how is your business really doing right now compared to where it was, let's say in February or early March when the lockdown kind of hit us. And what kind of transactions, what kind of site visits are you witnessing compared to the pre-lockdown times? And is that really improving, as we went from April to May to now June, and within June also, first half of June versus the second half of June? What are your, opening thoughts on that? And then we'll get into more specific questions. Maybe Varun, we can start with you, and then I'll go to the other panelists after that. Welcome Rohit as well to the webinar. Rohit Poddar, Managing Director, Poddar Housing and Development Limited, has just joined us also. Welcome, Rohit.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Varun, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Manisha. For us, I would say April and May were sort of difficult months overall across the board. There were some transactions happening through the digital route, but otherwise, outside of that, it was slow. I would say in June, things have started picking up. And let's say over the last 2 weeks in June, I would say we are probably back to about 75% of pre-COVID levels in terms of getting visits going, in transactions. So overall, things seems to be moving up, and the sense that we are also getting is that the things are getting more exciting as we get along. So some of the stories that we're hearing, some of the things, and the kind of consumers that are coming on board gives us great confidence as things are improving in the future.
I see. And you're seeing that across your cities of operations, Varun, NCR as well as the smaller cities?
Yes, generally across the board. Smaller cities are also seeing a little bit more physical visits. It's the smaller cities are seeing more physical visits. In NCR and let's say and Chennai is again in a lockdown, but otherwise in those two larger places, there has been a combination of virtual visits and physical visits.
I see.
So that's the difference.
Shantanu, coming to you, from your perspective, and I know you're tracking various asset classes and residential and commercial as well. But how are you seeing, how are things changing in the last few months with respect to transactions, with respect to site visits in the context of, residential, if you talk about right now?
Okay, so in terms of residential, I would say before the COVID hit us, and this I'm talking about in the month of March, I think we all were going through an extremely high run in terms of the number of tractions, the sales volumes, and the last year has been extremely good for the market. And the first quarter, even the month of January, February, we had very good numbers, and the month of March also we were seeing a good amount of traction. Suddenly the COVID happened. Yes, there was a break. Things came to a standstill. Since I operate out of Bangalore, in fact, we were lucky enough that the lockdown opened up beginning of May, the 4th of May, the lockdown opened up. And immediately we started seeing a lot of traction across various segments of residential asset class. So it's not just that affordable housing was selling, even the mid-segment products and even premium products. We saw a lot of traction happening. In fact, I've been interacting with a lot of developers, and I was also surprised to see that whatever was the lost number in the month of April, May, in the month of March and April, to a large extent, developers were able to recover. In fact, if we were doing a sale of maybe 10 units in a month, in the month of May, we saw almost close to 15 units getting transacted. So yes, there was a dip, there was a loss that happened in the month of April, but yes, things really started picking up from the month of May. The good thing was that immediately opening of the lockdown, people actually started coming for the site visits and closing the transaction. So that's a very good positive impact. And the month of May, as well as it has continued, that same trend has continued in the month of June. So it's not at the same level, but it is not at a standstill level. The good thing is it is across the different segments. So that's very important. And I would say largely this is happening because the products which got kind of designed and which came and hit the market over the past 1 year or 1.5 years, these are all products which were the need of the hour. So largely the affordable segment product or the mid-segment products that were coming and hitting the market. So I would say COVID, yes, there was a break, but things have started picking up.
And you're saying inherently there's a better demand supply match which is existing today compared to, let's say, what it was 3 years ago or even earlier.
So say a market like a Bangalore 3 years back, we had almost close to 100,000 units, which was unsold inventory. And in the Q1, the unsold inventory was just about 70,000 units. The traction which was prior to your demonetization was almost close to 55,000 units. The quarter that we ended in December 2019, we were pretty much back to almost close to 48,000 units. So that itself was that we were absorbing. The market was really on a absorption mode, and the products were coming in the right pricing and the right sizing and the right mix was coming out. So that's really translated, and that's where the push continued, and this is continuing right now. And even the work from home concept, because one side on the commercial market, we are seeing that a lot of news that there's going to be a lot of work from home that is going to happen. But then that is also putting us a pressure in terms of, yes, then people who have kind of made up their mind, they are going ahead with their decision. And on the government front also, if you look at the interest rates today are absolutely at the lowest. And then extension of CLSS scheme and all these things have also fueled the entire demand. So this is something which has started. I think this will continue for a while.
Got it. Thanks for that. Shailesh, coming to you, your opening comments on how are you seeing the last few months? Are things getting better with respect to transactions and site visits?
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. So few things. So when this lockdown actually started, I think we all had witnessed this, that it is probably for 15 days. Then we thought, okay, it's next 15 days. And, it's continued like this. Couple of things we did, although our ATL and everything campaign is not working, so we are not doing print or anything else, but couple of mediums which are working, which is like online, digital, the way we are doing Zoom calls now or webinars now. So we continued our reach or outreach that we had to do with our existing people who have visited site, or new people, or the new inquiry that is coming to us. And although no site visits till this begin again started, but till that time we have been getting a consistent number of bookings, and this trend was continuously there from the starting of lockdown. So we received online bookings, we transacted online, they paid us online. So in this last around 3 months, we have done more than 300 sales across our around 8 to 10 projects, which is a good number. Which also means that people are wanting to buy home. And when we are talking to customers, we are increasingly realizing that now more than ever, they are feeling the need to own a home. So if you're staying in a rented apartment, you want to own a home. If you're staying in a kind of a makeshift apartment or a chawl kind of apartment, you want to upgrade. You are staying in a 1 BHK, again, you want to upgrade, because now all this work from home thing is happening. And especially when work from home thing is starting, what we are seeing is that you are sitting at home, and then probably you're working for TCS, or probably you're working for 2-3 organizations also at the same point of time, because you are maybe doing something for a US-based organization. So all these things have started happening, and we are seeing these things happening on ground. So there is a change in the design, which is also happening. We have started showing, even if it's our designed apartment, that, okay, this is your workspace, this is your work desk that you can do. Or if it's a new apartment, we are thinking of, having a studio or a smaller office built into, any kind of new design product that we are having. So this new normal that we are all, getting used to. So this webinar that is happening, or all the meetings that are happening, all our office meetings are happening, the town hall gathering that we are happening, you have to book a hall, you have to invest money. For CP meet, you have to, book 1,000 person can be accommodated whole. Now that you don't need in just 50,000 rupees of Zoom subscription or a team subscription, you can do that. So many new things are coming up, and it's like, we have jumped a decade or two into the future, because these things would have happened in the future, but they are happening today. And that is the beauty of it. We are realizing how it is not important to travel. We are realizing how important meetings can also be conducted on video calling and all. So I think, as I said, we have, kind of jumped into the future, and so many things which we would have adopted in the future, now we are adapting and we are gaining from it. Work from home was always under discussion. Suddenly now everybody is doing it. We have to announce that 50% of our staff is not going to come to office at least for a year, and they're absolutely comfortable in working from home. They are attached, successfully completing the deadlines and maybe a more work. I don't have to supervise that, whether he's 10 to 6 working or working at whatever time. He just has to adhere to his deadline, attend the meetings, and then, he's free to do whatever else he wants to do. Take a break in between, have a lunch with his family, dinner with his family and all that. So I think this new normal is something that would have happened 20 years from here on, or even more, is happening today. And there are many, many positives coming out of this situation that we are in.
Yeah. Thanks, Shailesh, for those opening comments. I think you bang on when you say that, we've jumped a decade in some adoption of technology in certain areas, and including the way we are running our teams and our offices. And I'm starting to see some of that also in the way many of the builder partners are kind of outreaching to their prospective buyers and engaging them. That's also, I think, jumped at least many quarters, if not a decade, but at least a few years. Arya, coming to you, sitting in Calcutta, how is your take on how the last 3-4 months have been, and are things improving? At what rate are they improving? Your opening comments around that.
See, here in Kolkata and suburbs, we had already, as Shantanu mentioned, that we were only building for the need of the hour. So most of the developers had already gone into affordable housing mode because we already had a lot of demand, or we already had a lot of stock already in the MIG and the upper MIG segments. So, and just before the lockdown, we were seeing some uptake in the number of sales, and the market was improving. So, but with the lockdown coming in at about end of March and the entire April month, we were not able to do much. But then end of April and beginning of May, we started seeing some good traction, and we were able to, we were not able to get the customer site visits done, but we were still able to get the inquiries through. We were able to manage them, and we found out that virtual is real. We were able to close transactions digitally, and we were able to convince them that whatever they required to be convinced regarding the project site, the construction status and everything, we were able to do that all virtually in that May month. And when June came in and when relaxations were brought down a little bit more, then we started seeing some site visits as well. And now we were actually seeing buyers and customers who were pretty sure to buy the flats, because what this pandemic has done is that it has made or ensured that people require larger spaces. They need organized spaces to conduct meetings and to work from home. So, and end of it, they require a home to go back to. Like many people had been staying in rented housing, they were staying in old buildings, so now they want to move to better housing. So looking at all these things in mind, we think that June has been pretty good. We have still not achieved the number of sales, I would say, on a year-to-year basis, the number of sales that we did last year. But then even looking at this situation and looking at other sectors, I would say that we are still doing well. And housing being more essential than aspirational in nature, especially for the affordable housing segment, I think demand will be there. It is just how we are able to understand the problems that the buyers might currently experience in terms of their liquidity or their loan worthiness. If we're able to counter that and come up with products and offerings, I think we should do well. We should see the best growth in our sector in the next, say, 6 months or a year or so.
Okay. Thanks, Arya, for those comments. Rohit, coming to you, if briefly, in a couple of minutes, you can share your perspective on how things are changing in the last couple of months with respect to transactions and site visits or any other behavioral changes that you've seen. How has that changed in June versus, say, where it was pre-COVID?
So it seems that we are all in the same storm, but clearly in different boats. It might be a function of the micro market in which we're operating. We are currently a Mumbai-based and Pune-based affordable housing developer. So our boat is clearly in a different direction. We had a very robust month of sales from, I think, October of last year till Jan and Feb, and right until the lockdown. And then things have actually, I think the sentiment of the buyers changed. And there's a lot of worry on the ground because of it being a social media disease more than anything else, that people are very fearful. So our view was that we should not be pushing sales in this environment, and we actually stopped sales. We stopped our entire advertising and marketing campaign for the entire duration of the lockdown. And we really, our foundation, the Podar Foundation, was sort of reaching out to people, who are in stress, mental problems because of the hardships caused by COVID. And we had thousands of calls. So our view was that we should actually act as a partner and friend to our customers and really not discuss buying and selling. So we actually spent the entire time of duration doing that. Post the lockdown on the 8th of June, I still find fear in customers. As Rajiv Bajaj said, that we will have to sell ourselves out of this problem because we've actually flattened the wrong curve. So I believe that we've actually, we are in an economic problem for sure. and the wrong curve has been flattened. And it'll take time for demand to revive, mainly because it's a mental thing and a psychological issue. I think as the city becomes more normal and people start going out and they don't fear dying from corona anymore, then you'll see consumption basically coming back. What those drivers are, other than psychological, you'll have to basically wait and see. But very obviously, they should not be fearful of losing their job and having a reduction in their incomes, which affects their bankworthiness in terms of LTV to the flat. So this has to basically play out. We've seen largely our customers remaining intact with very few cancellations. We had surprisingly word of mouth through the lockdowns. We had quite a few expression of interest and tokens being paid, which haven't been registered now. And we're expecting July and August to be the months where the registration will actually happen quite fast. In the overall picture, I think people have understood that real estate has actually saved them in this pandemic because everything else has gone to the dogs. People who had 15 years of money through SIPs and mutual funds, they've lost 50% mark to value. People who've got other things have lost a lot of money. And really, whether you're living in a rented flat or your own flat, your house has really saved you in this pandemic. So I agree with the other panelists that we have a historic low in terms of the mortgage rates. Government is pushing people to buy affordable housing. And at some point of time, consumption will come back. And when it does, I think we'll have a large thrust in affordable housing. And last closing point, please remember, people who lived in a very close environment, very close small apartments during COVID, there was no social distancing, but more importantly, no emotional distancing. And people are fed up of leading with more very in a crowded space, and they all want their own nuclear families to live together and have their own apartment. So I see that a lot of people who are living in joint families, wanting to now live separately and having their own flats. And I think all these things together will probably lead to a significant increase in demand, probably by the festive season this year. Thanks.
Thanks, Rohit. Very insightful comments. And I think the bit you mentioned around the psychological state of the buyer is very, very relevant, given that, they may have, job concerns or stuff like that, business concerns, as well as, safety concerns also when they step out. So I wanted to actually move on to, some of the questions that we received from our participants. And Rohit, this is picking on your aspect that you mentioned that, psychologically also there could be still some fear amongst buyers. Now, one of the major hurdles is, for builders, for channel partners is how do you get physical site visits going in such an environment, right? Because there's a section of buyers who are a little scared to move out. There are some who are not so scared to move out. And so what are the steps that you think, builders or their channel partners and brokers can take to make site visits more safer for buyers,
sure,
which can ultimately help their transaction engine going?
Sure. So let's be very clear on the outset. India is now in the residential segment an end user led market. It's not like Emaar, where 90% of the customers are investors. In our case, Podar is a 99% non-investor led, end user led market. No end user will buy an apartment unless they physically go and see the site. It's just not happening, right? All this online stuff is all great from a marketing spiel, but unless customers go to see the site and see the place where they'll be living, no one's going to be paying the SDR. So that's one thing. The second thing is that since customers are scared to go to apartments on site visits, which is a statement of fact right now, please arrange your own cars. Have a fleet of cars which you hire and have that go to customers' houses, pick them up. Be what I call a vendor of convenience to your customer, and make their life, the buying decision with you easy. At every point of contact, make their life, simplify their life, and make it easy to deal with you as a seller. And don't look at it on a transactional manner at this point of time and say, "Arey, itna paisa gaya, usko gaadi bhejne ke liye." It's basically a scenario where you have to basically hold your customer's hand and build a relationship and build rapport. So send customers cars to pick them up, bring them to your site, make sure the car is fully sanitized, follow all instructions that are now available in the public domain as to how safety norms are to be followed, including wearing masks and gloves and things of this nature. And that's it. It's actually quite simple.
Interesting. And is that something you've tried? I'm assuming that's why you're mentioning it. And is that kind of work for you?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So Varun, coming to you, Rohit touched upon the safety aspect. But it's still likely that physical site visits may remain a little subdued for a while before they fully come back. So in that meantime, how do you think sellers can leverage technology to drive people to at least consider their properties either online or in some other fashion, so that at least they move from just being aware of your project to really actively considering it, at least, if not booking it?
So, Manish, I think technology will have a big role to play in the way the buying journey will work for a lot of customers. There are 2-3 things that I would like to touch upon and that we are seeing. And I think there is a change which is going to be a little bit more long-term shift in the way people in the buying journey. So one thing is the website. Are we seeing more people come to the website? More people spending more time at the website. So how good is your website to serve? What quality of information do you have available there? Is it engaging? So that's the first digital touch point that I would say people would have after, let's say, they have gone through a set of, selecting a few properties out of like aggregating website like yours, and then say, I want to research 5 of these a little bit more. People have a little bit more time, they can go ahead and research over there. So that's one. Second, we've been conducting virtual visits. So using technology like Zoom, having something. So effectively, you're walking a customer through a brochure of your project on the screen and just walking him through, this is what it is. In some places, our executives have actually taken a live camera feed and gone and shown the project, shown the flat. And this has had, I think, impact in 2 places. And let's say, you're of the opinion that direct sales through virtually is not possible. We have had some bookings, but people do want to confirm and visit and confirm their booking. So they've given a certain amount, but they would pay rest of the monies only once they do a physical visit, if that's the way to put it. But to me, the virtual site visit has played 2 important roles. One role is shortlisting a consideration set for customers. So, if they want to physically visit, they've gone through a virtual visit. I would have physically visited 20 properties. Now I'll visit only 5 properties. And that there has been an impact there. And the outer station people who are buying, so people who, let's say for us, buying in Jaipur but living in Bombay, or they're NRI customers, it facilitates in that process as well. I think the other aspect of the technology here through a virtual visit or digitally that was very useful in the buying process. Home buying is also a multiple decision-making process. It's not just there is one person in the house, or to say the man of the house makes the decision. Probably not, right? He's involved, the spouse is involved, sometimes parents are involved, sometimes you take a reference of a sibling of yours. There are multiple people involved in the decision making, and for everyone to come for a physical site visit also may not be possible. So the other place the virtual site visit process sort of kicks in is in, one family member has come, seen the property, liked it, but does not want to do a sort of a secondary visit. So they're, conducting a visit virtually using sort of video conferencing tools has been sort of key. So I think that's the 2 kind of engagements that we've had. Third, another thing that we've used virtually, which was very interesting, one of the executives in Chennai did that. Got a lot of existing customers and prospective customers together on a video conference, and you want a reference, you have some queries. We have an existing customer here who's living in the project. You guys can interact with each other, otherwise which would have been difficult. And that's also an important process, because a lot of when you're buying, you want to know how the project is to live in the future. So those were 3-4 things that we have used technology in. And I think there are more avenues to use it, as we learn through the process, keep experimenting with it, practicing and learning. That's what I would like to say here. The physical visit of the properties remain extremely important, and making them safe and comfortable to the buyer. There's no two ways about it. But technology will have a role to play in the buying journey that probably a customer goes through at this point.
Thanks, Varun. I think, this point of online site visits, we did a survey recently amongst our buyers on 99 acres just to understand, do they find such a concept appealing, or would they even want to do it? Because, the common wisdom would say, as Rohit also said, that finally you need to make a physical visit to, transact a property. But what I think the interesting insight that came out from that survey was that, as you said, Varun, that there is an element of shortlisting and convenience that this offers, right? And it's one kind of N-1 step before really doing either the physical visit or the transaction. But certainly the convenience of it is actually a great thing for buyers. And I think the family angle that you brought in is very interesting. That sometimes somebody goes for the physical visit, but everyone can't go, so can the others do it online to at least get a sense of the property? We started a webinar actually, which is just around a kind of a product offering in the market as 99 acres for partners like all of you and many others, which is a webinar for engaging interested prospects. And to our surprise, we found that the builder community is able to pretty nicely do a sample flat kind of a demo. They're able to take some questions from engaged buyers, because people don't come to a webinar for 45 60 minutes unless they have at least some level of seriousness about a particular property or a project. And it seems to be getting traction across the country. So just to your point, Varun, it's kind of playing out well for 99 acres as well. And we are seeing a lot of buyers kind of come for these webinars where builder sales professional is there on the other side to take their questions and take them through the details of the property. Shailesh, coming to you now, when it comes to looking at a way of not being able to do physical meetings right now and try and do online bookings. Is that something that you have tried? Is that something you think can happen? What could be some of the challenges in pushing buyers towards online bookings? Your thoughts there?
Yeah, Manish, thank you for asking this question. I'll tell you frankly, because online bookings are happening and online visits are happening. Yes, people do want to make one physical visit. That is imperative. They have to do it. But it is not that till they do physical visits, they are not going ahead with sharing out their money. So that is being done. Tokens or EOIs, as it is called popularly, are being exchanged. Money is paid online. We are also receiving bookings online. As I did mention that we have done around 300, which is a combination of bookings and EOIs. And I'll tell you frankly, many people find it difficult to believe. In fact, when we had given out this press note, one of our PR person came back to us saying that, please do not give out, because a lot of people are not believing these kind of news items today. And even reporters are saying that, this is all fake news. But let me tell you, these EOIs and tokens are happening, as some of the other players across India have mentioned about it. People are interested. People are looking for something. See, everybody has smartphone today. Even if you are trying to sell an affordable housing costing say around 15 lakh rupees, say he's a driver or a peon somewhere, he has smartphone with him. And you can give him a video call and explain the brochure, which is an online brochure, along with it. Now with the online brochure, you can have site visits also, you have a walkthrough also, you can show him, you can give him the control and tell him that you can go around and play around a bit and find out how is this sample flat, what is happening here, what is the view on this side, all that. So this is available at the cheapest of cost in India today because of smartphone proliferation, because of 4G connectivity, because of good bandwidth being available. So across, I think, world, India is not at the top, but India has good bandwidth available. So which is what is happening, because of which you are able to do online demo to him, online site visits, online explanation. Just like Zoom, there are many other platforms also available. Online transfer of payment is happening. So token is being issued. And see, mind well, what you need to do is you need to identify your customers, those who have visited the site prior to, let's say, 21st March. How can you target? How can you keep them engaged? So he or she has done one site visit. So it is for sure that you can engage with him. Second, the new inquiries that are coming in. I'll tell you frankly, first 15 days, 20 days, we continued with our online campaigns. And to tell you a secret, our cost per lead was the lowest because hardly anybody was, present in the online space. So that gave us a lot of mileage. You need to show your presence. Secondly, you need to keep them engaged. Third, those who have given you token, then they thought that in 15 days, I'll be able to come to site. Now 3 months have passed. So you need to keep them engaged. Send them new information, keep talking, arrange webinars, tell them something about you, about your project, about market in general. Although also very, very important thing about channel partner, there is a clear-cut distinction. Some channel partners who have given up and not working, and some are working. So how can you engage them also? Because see, if ATL is not working, what is working and what is online, and what is also working is reference based. I think somebody did mention, and what is working also is selling through channel partners. Why? Because they have existing database. They can work on that. They need not campaign, but they can work on that. Keep their customers engaged. Show them options. Give them options. I think somebody here also mentioned there's a lot of negativity. People are not doing, but it is not the scene on ground. There are some challenges, but as people are thinking everything is down to zero, that is not what is happening.
Okay, go.
When it picks up, you need to come back and you need to be there. You need to have a ready pipeline of EOIs or tokens where you will start converting into bookings, or you start converting into registration. June is the month registration have started, and we have done around 20 to 25 registrations this month across our project. So these things have started happening. Even e-registration is now happening. We have got recently permission for online registration. In 7 days or 8 days, we are starting online registration from our office. In, I think, 3 to 4 weeks, government is coming up with software where a customer sitting at home and you are sitting in your home or office can do registration. That thing is also starting because government wants revenue. How long they will wait. So all these things are happening. We need to look at it positively. We need to look at the real picture and not so much of negativity which is going around. We need to see through that, what is there, what are opportunities, what are the positive sides. Some negatives are there, but are you going to concentrate only on those negatives, or you are going to concentrate on positives and find you a way out of this? I think that is what is expected and we should all be doing. Thank you, Manish.
Thanks, Shailesh. Thanks. Shantanu, coming to you, a lot of the participants in the webinar are saying that, their clients, and, mind you, the participants in this webinar are more builders, channel partners, and their teams, right? So a lot of them from their, clients, from their buyers, their buyers are telling them that, look, let's wait right now because, maybe prices will come down, etc. So that's a frequent thing that a buyer wishes for and is hoping for, right? And now prices may or may not go down, and that may depend on particular projects and locations and builders. But the question is that if you're dealing with such a buyer, how does one convince him that this is still a good time to go ahead with your transaction? Because that's the interest that the community here has. And what would be your maybe what your research is telling you as well? Maybe you can touch upon that as well, and help our participants with that question. How do you convince a buyer who is very skeptical about waiting because he wants to wait because he thinks prices will come down?
So Manish, in this kind of a situation, the only way to convince is to educate your client. You have to tell your client exactly what a development is all about, what are the cost aspects. And that's very important, because today when we look at a particular project and we say there is a price of 5,000 rupees per square feet attached to that particular project, that has number of items attached to it. So you need to kind of educate your client. And if I can just give you a breakdown in terms of how the cost is, typically, if you look at the land, would be typically anything around 30% of the development cost will be the land cost. Your cost of construction would be another 55, 56% would be your pure cost of construction. Then you have your approval cost, which is another 5%. Then you have your cost of finance, which is pretty open. Everyone knows what is the cost of finance today. So that would be another 12%. And then you are left with a margin, which is a profit for a developer. So today, if you look at a developer today operates on a very thin margin, which is just about a double digit from a 10% to a 12% kind of a scenario. So one needs to kind of educate in terms of how the pricing is arrived at and what are the possibilities of a correction if we are looking at a particular correction. So that's very important for us to educate that along with this particular margins, what we are talking about, we also need to kind of make them understand that if you have understood the particular project, also you need to understand that if there is a price attached, if there is a cost of development, somebody will say, okay, no, this cost would be probably 2,000 rupees per square feet would be the cost of construction. And why this particular developer is kind of charging me, or in the end costing breakup, it is 2,500 rupees. So that's where the quality aspect comes in. That's where the track record comes in, because today you are under RERA norms. You have to follow those particular norms in terms of delivery timelines, quality, all those aspects. And when you are dealing with a developer of a repute, also you are dealing with his deliverables in terms of his past deliverables, in terms of his timely deliverables and the quality of the deliverables. So I think everyone would understand and would be willing to pay, even if they have to pay a 5% premium only on that particular account. I don't think one will mind that particular kind of a thing. Second is today, if you look at from a financing point of view, in terms of various options are there, means today the interest rates are absolutely at a low. And if your affordable scheme is under the CLSS scheme, and if you're availing that, you are further getting that additional benefit. So that's where you have to kind of educate them that why today. If you're not seeing that the pricing is not going to drop, then then what is the upside on that particular price? Because today what you're buying today is pretty much if you kind of work it out, it is kind of coming to you absolutely interest free, or probably the interest would be as low as 3 to 4%. So that's where it's very important for the channel partner to educate the client and give them enough insight in terms of how these cost breakups are arrived at. And today there won't be much of a difference. Obviously, there's going to be not much of a difference, because cost of finance is uniform, cost of approval is uniform. The only thing can be a land cost. But again, if you're looking at a particular project, you know that, and pretty much people are aware about what kind of a land it is. So these aspects really help in terms of from a channel partner point of view, that they go ahead and explain this, educate all these aspects to their customers.
Okay, so basically educate about prices and how they are kind of derived from the builder's point of view, and make the buyers understand some of that.
Correct.
Okay. Arya, a question for you, which has come from the audience, which is, a lot of the buyers today are wanting ready-to-move properties, because there's been that general trend that I want to first see it up and then kind of purchase it, right? Now the fact is that there are a lot of under construction properties and projects as well across the country. Now, how should what are some of the advice you would have for our builders and channel partners when it comes to under construction projects? How to build that confidence in the buyer that this will, number one, see the light of day, and it will see the light of day in a reasonable time, and because the sentiment, as I said, is a little bit preference towards ready to move properties versus under construction properties. So how do you advise people to kind of deal with that?
See, Manish, this is understandable. With this pandemic coming in, people want safety on their investment. If they want to invest in housing, they probably want to invest in something which is tangible and which is present at the moment. And under construction, we know how things have been last few years. So they are a bit skeptical on that part. But with RERA coming in, I think it has allayed most of that fears, that people can still opt for under construction housing. And you always get better pricing on an under construction flat than a ready to move in flat. So that is something which a buyer understands, and it has to be communicated the right way. To allay the fears that probably under construction is not a safe investment, or the deliveries may get delayed. I think we'll have to communicate the construction schedules, more practical construction schedules. Will have to ensure that these things are communicated to the customers routinely. So like, I'll give an idea that we all do email marketing. So we earlier used to send out emails for say promotional offers or with updates of our projects. And we used to see an open rate, say if we used to send an email to about 100,000 customers, we used to see an open rate of say 30 to 40% and probably a click-through rate of 10 to 15%. Just now, when we started our construction in our projects, and when we sent that emailer to all our customers, within 1 hour, we had an open rate of about 82%. We had sent about 130,000 customers. We had a click-through rate of somewhere around 15-20% in the first couple of hours, and then probably it increased to about 40-45%. So the digital penetration is there. We just have to use the medium well. And it's not just for the virtual tours and things that we have to use it. We can even use it today for transactions. And that is something where we would, even the developer would benefit and even the buyers would benefit. In affordable housing, we had done one thing that we had about 500 flats and we had come up with a lottery scheme. There we came with this, that buyers can also apply for our flats online and they can complete the entire process online. And you wouldn't believe, like we had about 40% applications coming through online. And we had people applying everywhere from UAE to US to Bangalore to Delhi to Mumbai. And of that 40%, about 20-22% had not even come to see the flat before they paid in the money. It's only when they actually came in to complete the transaction that they came and visited the site and did everything. Again, that was possible because it was at a prominent location. It was within the city. If probably we are looking at projects which are outside city, then people would want to know and would want to get acclimatized to the location before making their investment. But the projects which are within the city, people already know where they are and what they're about. And if we can just like what we have started doing is we have started bringing in live CCTV feed for a couple of hours. So, and we start sharing the links to our customers. And if they want to get a status on construction, if they want to see the vicinity, the roads and everything, how it is nearby, so they can just log in and then they can get a feel of it. But I think we have to use digital transactions more. And with under construction in this pandemic period, coming back to your question, we'll have to look at the liquidity and the loan worthiness of the buyers, and we'll have to do something with our installments, with our demands, and we have to ensure that in the next 6 months, because that is the fear everybody has, because every business has suffered during this period of time. And it's not just the businessmen, it's also the salaried persons alike. So it's affecting not just the premium flats, it's also affecting the affordable flats. So probably now they require larger space, organized space, or they require a home, so they are coming in to buy the flat. But we have to understand that their monies, that the amount, that the installments keep coming in, or they continue to hold on to their flats. So we'll have to look at our product offerings and design it in such a way and tell them, many of our developers here, we are coming up with a scheme that you pay only 10%, 20% today, and then you pay the balance, say, in the next financial year. So we are allaying that fear. And if somebody wants to prepay, then we can give some discount there. So this would, see, with RERA and other authority coming in, it's a blessing in disguise for us. Now they can be rest assured that this project will get completed or their investment is secure. The other thing that we have to do is we have to be very transparent with our construction schedules. We have to be practical with our construction schedules. If there's a delay, we have to notify them, and we have to regularly keep on updating them. It's not just like putting it on the website. We have to, we can send an emailer to them. And trust me, a construction update emailer is the most viewed emailer. Everybody wants to know the status of their flats. Even the new buyers, even they are interested in, like if you achieve a particular milestone, and if you say send out that emailer to all your existing customers as well as your new customers, you would find that that attracts them more than any other offer that you may be telling. It's for under construction housing. So if you're able to get those communications clear and look at their and help them with their liquidity and financial position for the next 1 year or so, I think we should be able to achieve good sales in under construction flats also.
I think this last point, Arya, that you mentioned on construction updates, very interesting. And a lot of some of the feedback that we also get on our site from new home buyers is that can you show us how this project has progressed over the last 1 year or 2 years? Because let's say it got launched 2 years back or 3 years back or 6 months ago. And I think the more ways we find as a larger community to show that tangible progress, whether you mentioned email or it could be a video, it could be any other mechanism of doing it, that I think will go a long way in building credibility around under construction projects as well. Varun, next question is for you. On our site, we've been observing that, the traffic from smaller towns has kind of bounced back faster compared to traffic in the bigger metros, right? So let's say a Jaipur or a Lucknow or a Coimbatore would have, bounced back faster, but a Bombay, Delhi and Chennai, it's taking its time to come back, right? Relatively speaking. And I'm talking of traffic where it was pre-COVID and now. And I know you have projects which are spread across big cities as well as smaller cities. So what would the advice that you would give to sellers in terms of devising their strategies any differently in a metro versus a smaller town? Are there any fundamental things to be looked at differently from a sales, marketing, and a go-to-market perspective?
Yep, 2-3 things, Manisha. I would just give context on it also the way we see it. Like,
Sure.
The impact of COVID in a smaller city is also far lesser than let's say Bangalore excluded, but if you take, or Calcutta, but you take Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, the impact of COVID and its nearness to you, like, your friend having it, someone has it, a friend's relative has it, your relative have it, you may have it. The impact of COVID in its fear is far more sort of prevalent in the bigger cities as compared to the smaller cities. So let's say if I would say the ability to do a virtual visit in NCR and in Chennai is far more prevalent. In the smaller cities, people are have become a lot more comfortable to come for physical visit. So there would be some differences there. The other difference that there is always also from that virtual and physical perspective, let's say if you're in Noida or Gurgaon or Bhiwadi, that matter, where we operate in NCR, your choice of developments is also far too many. So you have to do a lot more online research and reduce the number of properties that you will see. As compared to, let's say, if you operate in Jodhpur, you probably have 5 or 6 properties all of Jodhpur city, or maybe 10 properties in Jodhpur city that you'll see. You can take one round in one day and physically cover most of that. So there is a difference in the way people are behaving just because of the external stimulus is different. So I think one of the things, instead of saying large cities, small cities, people might have to take that city's context fully in perspective. And we are seeing also very, very different sort of behaviors and pockets. In Jaipur, I think there is now some stories of people wanting to come out of the cities, of particularly, let's say, the very crowded parts of the city. We recently had like a visit of a family which was 12 people and who were taking 2 properties, and now they're taking properties on rent and then will buy later, who probably in their entire life would have not thought of leaving. And this is the walled city of Jaipur, and they wouldn't have left that walled city for any context whatsoever. COVID provided that sort of catalyst to get out of that area. So there are different sort of contexts that I'll put in. It's also the kind of jobs people have. Larger cities have more jobs which are more work from home doable. Also, so they have a different context because that is there. So we are seeing differences like that in the cities that we operate in. So one piece would be don't don't take, what you hear from one place and apply it as if it's the same canvas and do that. I think we need to think through what's going on in a particular city or in a particular market or a project. A lot of, and I would caution people here is we take predictions as and forecasts from experts or people who write or speak, that those are true forecasts. Effectively, they're forecasts, they're predictions. I would urge people to get information and act on the information that they are getting. What are they sort of seeing in that particular area, what it is. We are seeing people who are willing to pay in a month and move in. If it's a ready to move in property, they would. There are people who want to pay and take property and rent, and then there are people who are saying we need a 2-year timeline to pay the installments. We are a little uncomfortable with our savings. We want to buy a property, but there is so there are very different contexts that is running. I think everyone should see that particular cities, that particular project's context, and make their strategy around that. I think that's an important perspective.
And if you can just build on that a little bit more, Varun, that what are some of the smart signals that whether they're developers or channel partners, that they can pick up at a city level, which goes beyond their transactions and site visits. Now that data, of course, everyone has, and you're talking to some of your own prospective clients of the past, etc. But what else can builders and channel partners smartly tap into to kind of feed their knowledge locally about what's really happening? Any advice on that?
So one is to listen to sort of what we did here was listen to a few customer calls, what kind of questions they were asking, what kind of things you were doing. A great part about a virtual visit is you can record it on Zoom. Yeah. And if your sales executive has conducted a visit, it comes to you and you can hear the actual questions that the customers have. And so one of the things one must do is tap into actually what the customers are saying. One of the things that to me was one thing that you're getting a sense of the importance of location in a decision making and the property. Let's say if location came first and the quality of property came second in the decision, that is narrowed in a lot of cities. Like, and in smaller cities, I think the prevalence of preferring a location was even more important. Because and I say cities where distance is measured in kilometers and not in time. And you'll know all, like, if you talk to someone in Delhi, how you ask how far is this, he'll tell you आधा घंटा दूर है, 1 hour away or 90 minutes away. And then there's and you go to a context where how far is this? This is 5 kilometers away. There are very two different contexts. In smaller cities, one thing we saw was location earlier was far more important in their context, and the development quality itself was not as important. That we are seeing changing, where people are saying, we want a well-designed, good amenities, open green spaces, communities, and we are willing to go a little further away, which was not the case earlier. So this is something you can hear. Are people wanting larger spaces or smaller spaces? There is context of, people are a little bit more constrained of their budget, so they might want smaller spaces. There's another thing that's going on, people want a segregated work from home space. And these are different things. My biggest advice here is listen in and listen to the customer instead of, let's say, a few people on a webinar. I think that's the most important perspective
basically get more and more closer to your buyer, and listening to those live recorded calls is a very good example of that. It's available to all of us. It's very simple, but maybe how many of us are doing it on a day-to-day basis to really know that pulse, right? I think
absolutely. Another thing, I would not only listen to calls that other people make. If you're going through, let's say, an hour-long site visit, you don't retain everything the customer said. If it's recorded, it would be a great thing to actually go back and just listen to what the customer said. Oh, and then, okay, this is what actually this customer needs. I was thinking he's scared about his job. He really isn't. That's what I had in my head. And I was trying to pitch him a payment plan. He actually wants this, and sort of do that exercise. I think that's the most important piece that I would take away from this.
Rohit, coming to you, a question from somebody in Bombay. This gentleman is asking in terms of, when it comes to selling affordable projects today versus selling a mid-price project today, is there any change in the selling and marketing strategy that you would advise? Affordable versus a mid-price kind of project.
So, I mean, first of all, in Mumbai, there's no such thing as a definition of affordable housing, right? What's affordable to me may not be affordable to somebody else. What's affordable to you may not be affordable to me. So, what's affordable is what's affordable for that location, right? And you have the high property prices in many parts of the city, and you have very, very low priced, competitively priced products available, outside the city in MMR. So the short answer is basically you have to market that product for what is designed to be, what the product performance is basically for. So let's say, for example, we're doing a bunch of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana schemes, and within those, we're seeing a very vastly different demographic, on customer base. But what is that location? What is the product designed to deliver as a housing solution and a lifestyle for that particular customer? So there's no such thing as one size fits all. If one's selling, for example, a 100cc motorcycle or a 200cc motorcycle, obviously there'll be a different campaign for marketing and advertising, even though they're both affordable from an absolute perspective. So the short answer is no, there is not. It's very specific to that location and demographic, and drive the advertising and marketing campaign in that specific manner.
Okay, thanks, Rohit. Shailesh, coming to you, one question which has come, and I think this is likely somebody who's dealing with both, investors and end users, right? So the question is that, investors and end users, of course, their objective is different, their buying behavior is different. Now, in a time like this, how would you, advise, other builders or other channel partners to engage with an investor versus an end buyer? What would, would some things change currently given the current situation? Or would it be the same as how you would deal with an investor or a buyer when, let's say 6 months back or a year ago? Your comments on that.
Yeah, Manish, thank you. But first thing, let me tell you, I am not somebody who can advise builders. They are a very smart lot of people. So maybe I cannot say anything to them. Definitely to channel partners that both are out in the market today. Investors, for the reason that they think that we will be able to get a better deal now. Investors are out there to look at distressed sale of properties. Investors are out there to look for some kind of distress sale happening from a developer, from another investor, or something like that. So they are also out in the market. And of course, the end users are there in the market because, as we all know, with so many things changing and people going back to importance of home and all such. So even the individuals and end users are always there in the market, and they are there in all formats also. We have a very absolutely affordable housing project which is between, say, around 12 lakh rupees to 25 lakh rupees, and that project has received maximum traction and maximum number of bookings in this period, which was to great surprise to us also. So I think what is important is that you deciding something based on the news coming out in the market. It's not something that you should be doing, you should be believing. You should be somebody who's creating that news, because news, when it gets reported, is always stale. That has happened in the past. You should be the people who should be making that news, that this thing has happened. Investors are back and actual users are back, and they need to be talked to, they need to be communicated to, and they are out there looking for a better deal. They are out there looking for a property to buy. mind well that for last 2 years, the inventory levels have been continuously going down because number of developers being less, number of launches coming down, demand staying there. So the gap is narrowing, and the gap is narrowing further and at a faster pace. There's absolutely no new launches during this period, or very minimal launches during this 3-month period. Demand is less by a bit, but launches are less by almost 80-90%. So that has caused further gap narrowing down in this inventory which is available in the market. So as we are talking about, as some people are mentioning, there are some other people also in I was talking some other forum, that the kind of recovery that we will be seeing, because we talked about China having revenge buying happening. We talked about some of the other developed markets where stock markets are bounced back. In our case also we have seen. So many things are happening in the market. I think it's not about actual user and investors. People are out there, those who want to buy and those who want to invest. India's growth story, medium to long term, is intact, and I think we should be capitalizing on that. If not in the near future, but we would be growing at 5, 6, 7, 8 kind of growth rate, and on such a large size of economy. So I think you should be there in the market and looking for all the opportunities, be it a buyer, end user, investor, somebody wanting to upgrade, all that. So I think forget all that, forget mindsets getting created, forget news coming out in the market. You go out in the market and test the market yourself. That's what you need to do.
Thanks, Shailesh. Arya, next question for you. This is on the commercial side of things. There's obviously a fear that with some bit of work from home, which may pick up, and the economy on the retail side as well suffering, commercial office spaces and commercial retail spaces will find offtake, whether as in terms of leasing out or selling out, a little difficult. Now, what advice and strategy should somebody who has commercial inventory, what advice would you have for them as to how to lease it out or sell it out in these times?
See, Manish, India's growth story was still being written when this pandemic happened. So the requirement was there, and we were still kind of one of the leading to highest, fastest growing nation in the world. So there is still demand for that, because we are still home to a population of more than 1.3 billion. And so we will require services for them. We will require industries for them. So this is just a blip in a very big time scale. So, but how we should approach this, like if we have commercial, where we have commercial spaces, how we are looking at it is that we have to give some leeway of say 6 months or probably 9 months, 2 quarters or 3 quarters leeway to our prospective buyers or to our tenants or to people looking for leasing out spaces, commercial spaces from us, to ride them through this period. Because end of the day, what this pandemic has taught everyone is that you require more space. Whatever space you had earlier, you would require, like people used to work with X number of people in a more crammed up space. And now the thinking is clear that you have to spread out. You have to look at bigger spaces. So the demand will come back. Probably the demand maybe for commercial may be a bit sluggish because offices have still not opened, or where they've opened, they've not opened with that capacity. But I think give a quarter here or so, here or there, demand should come up. But we should be ready to look at their liquidity status as well. And if we are able to allow them a leeway of say 2 quarters, then probably the leasing, they will be even more confident and they can continue with it.
So you're saying as a landlord, give your tenants some breathing space, help them out as a partner, so that and attract also prospective new tenants if you can slightly reduce your lease rents.
Absolutely. See, this is a short-term issue, and we are all in it together. It's not that they are just facing the problem. Even every sector is going through that issue. So it's not that tomorrow, like today, you have a retail customer, you think you may get a bank there and you may be able to get more rent. That's not the case. So it is every sector that has suffered. Some have, in some places, the impact has been much severe, whereas in some sectors, they've managed to survive. So we'll have to look at their liquidity situation and ensure that we are able to give them that breathing space for next 5-6 months, because see, this is going to bounce back, and we are a country of more than 1 billion people, so it has to bounce back, it has to come back. And our growth story was still being written, and we still have another 4 or 5 years to write our growth story. So this is going to come back. This is a very it's a blip in a very large time frame. So we'll just have to get right through this, and then things should be easier.
Sure. Shantanu, coming to you, there's a question again around commercial leasing. So a lot of the viewers are curious to know if commercial leasing will gain more and more importance over commercial buying as a result of what the economy is going through right now. Is that something likely to play out, and why?
So
I'm assuming the question is in context of both office spaces as well as retail. So if you could touch upon both.
Okay. So when we look at the commercial office spaces, and especially when we are looking at the larger office spaces, these are all leased out space. So there is no buyout space, because large corporates, all large blue chips, they will only prefer to take a property on lease and then occupy. And when it comes to small offices, yes, probably those would be the offices wherein there is both the option of lease as well as a buy option. And in a buy option, it would be mostly a high net worth individual who would be buying those smaller offices and further leasing it out to prospective corporates who want to occupy those particular space. So in terms of when we look at what is happening, whether it's going to change or not, I think largely the commercial real estate operates on leasing model rather than on a buying model, barring a few of the large Indian corporates who would be still buying properties or commercial real estate for their own consumption or part of their investment strategy. Pretty much everything is going towards the commercial leasing part of it. So it's going to be the leasing. Leasing is going to be continued the way it is happening. And in the smaller offices, it would be largely driven by, in terms of, yes, there has to be a balancing that needs to be done. So whether you would kind of say whether you want to buy the office for a long-term period or you want to basically lease out the space. So it all depends upon those individuals who are running the show out there in terms of with regard to the smaller office spaces.
I see. And what about retail, Shantanu? Any specific trends you see in retail emerging?
So again, when we look at retail, we are looking at retail. If I break down the retail, which can be organized retail and the unorganized retail. So if I'm looking at organized retail, which is the mall operations, we know the story. We know what is happening on that side. There's a lot of bloodbath happening on that side because of malls being shut, not operating. There's no footfall because this is the retail format, the organized mall format or the organized retail format largely depends on the footfalls. The footfalls will bring in the conversion and the conversion will bring in the revenue. And these assets are not easy to maintain. There is a huge operating cost. OPEX is very high with regard to the retail operations. So I think that those asset classes, I think is something where there is a lot of wait and watch in terms of till the time the normalcy comes back with regard to the footfall. So I think the wait and watch might be for another couple of quarters before the footfalls start increasing. Today, the malls have already opened up quite a few, most of the location, what I'm hearing, but the footfalls are not there right now, as of now, because people are still very afraid in terms of stepping out, unless until you have a very particular need to go into those organized formats and pick up stuff out there. On the other side, you have the unorganized format, your high street formats. I think the high street formats, things are coming back to a certain amount of normalcy. But yes, out there also, it is largely depend on footfalls. Footfalls will gradually pick up, but the only advantage between an organized or a high street format or a mall format is the operating cost. So you're in a high street, even though your rentals would be slightly higher, but your operating cost would be slightly lower in terms of your CAM charges and other things. So, and that's where between the retail operator and the landlord, how they are kind of balancing it out is very important to work out. And because end of the day, it's a business. So if the retailer is unable to do business in those particular formats, obviously he is not in a position to pay rentals. So one needs to basically do that handholding and kind of sail through for the next couple of quarters.
Thanks, Shantanu. Moving on to the next question. This is coming from, I think, a gentleman in Pune. So Rohit, Arya, Varun, any one of you could take this, and more than one person welcome to share your comments. So I think there's a developer, somebody from the developers team, and they wanted to understand from your experience in the last 2-3 months. I know, Rohit, you mentioned you were not actively selling and marketing last few months, but maybe Varun and Arya can comment. Is that, which specific marketing channels have, worked better for you in the lockdown or in the last month or so compared to, let's say, what it used to be before the lockdown? Any light that you can throw on that will be helpful to our audience. Varun, Arya, Rohit, any one of you could take this. Yeah, Arya, please. Arya, I think you're on mute.
Am I audible now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So hands down, it's digital, because in April, as I mentioned, we were not doing anything. But end of April and beginning of May, we started advertising, and hoarding was not an option. Print has been dead for quite some time now for real estate. So digital had already gained traction. Digital was already 50% of our budget was going to digital since last couple of years. But in this last 1.5 months, it is almost 100%. So we are not doing anything else. We are just doing digital. And I believe somebody else mentioned as well. And we are getting the lowest cost per lead, which is unimaginable. We could not believe such numbers when we started advertising, because maybe many other players are not there, or it could be a reason that there are many more users on digital now than there were earlier, and people are spending a lot of time digitally than what used to be the case earlier. So it is digital hands down, and digital gives you so much more flexibility in designing your ad, whichever information that you want to convey to your customer. You can create remarket. You can use remarketing tools. You can present them whichever scenario that you want them to see. So digital is the way forward, and I think in the next 6 months or so, digital and to an extent TV is also going to help. TV and radio to an extent, but I think digital is going to be the main tool for sales in the next quarter or so.
Anything you'd like to add, Varun or Rohit, on that?
For us, Manish, I think the references and word of mouth were probably the key piece. Even if customers got engaged digitally later on virtual visits or thing, I think the first port of call were through actually existing customers. And, that I think that's the channel that was that has worked very well. It was also a great time that the team can use to connect with existing customers. Existing customers also have a little bit more time on hand right now, so calling them, just talking to them, and building relationships there. I think that's been an important source of getting customers.
I would also concur with Varun's view. The same thing has worked for us as well.
Got it. Great. Just looking at the last few questions. I think this is for you, Rohit, specifically. Somebody from the audience is asking that the interest subsidy being offered by Government of India is still 2022, apparently. And so what do you think of the sales velocity in the sub 25 lakh segment after 2022?
Difficult question to answer because I think it's a political question, whether or not what is the propensity of delivery of affordable housing. See, Maharashtra is still very far behind the 8 ball, and there's a very good reason for this. Mumbai and Pune have very high income levels for a normal customer. So if you look at basically a bell curve, you'll see that 80% of the customers in the city that want to buy affordable housing are of a certain income level, and it's typically speaking in the 5-6 lakh rupee per annum category. Now, after the 7th pay commission, even the government employees are earning way more than 3 lakh rupees. As a consequence of this, the number of people applying for the economically weaker section part of the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana scheme is very low because of the fact that their income level is not as per the norms, which is below 3 lakh rupees. The central government is about to change this now, from what I'm told, to making EWS up to 6 lakh rupees for certain cities across the country, and this will include the PMRDA and also MMR in Mumbai, and also large parts of the NCR, Varun. So as a consequence of this, many more people who are actually first-time home buyers who are eligible to buy will now be eligible to buy, right? So once this happens, then the offtake in the number of houses will actually increase substantially. The sales have been low. If you look at the number of apartments sanctioned across India, for example, and the number of apartments which have been sold, this has been a significant reason why the metros have not done so well in the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana scheme. So my view is that we're sort of behind the 8 ball of housing for all. Remember, we're supposed to have bridged the gap by 2022 housing for all, which I don't think will actually happen. And there is a significant chance that this might actually be the time frame might be increased. But I'm not a politician, so I can't say for sure. What I can say is that I think it's a great time to buy a house now, because the stars have all aligned in terms of project availability, finance, things of this nature. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the other asset classes have done appallingly badly. So I'm not sure how long this window will last. It'll certainly last for the next few months. But whether this pricing will last till 2022, I very much doubt it, because it'll mean that more developers will actually go bankrupt because the margins are already very thin, especially in the affordable housing category. Thanks.
Thanks, Rohit. Thank you. So I think we're pretty much at the end of the webinar. I have a lot more questions, but in the interest of time, we'll have to end this here. I think a couple of really interesting insights came from our panelists, and thanks to Arya, Rohit, Shantanu, Varun, and Shailesh for sharing their thoughts and taking all the questions. I think a couple of things which stood out for me is that while work from home demand is increasing, we are seeing companies kind of announce that as either as optional, as options for their employees or otherwise. But that's something which may also propel residential demand. I think there's a lot of positivity around most of our panelists mentioning that they are seeing sales kind of bounce back reasonably well in June compared to where it was pre-COVID. Some mentioned at 60%, some mentioned at 70-80% levels. I think that's a healthy sign. I think the technology adoption is another thing that, whether we like it or not, whether we are a builder, a channel partner, whether we are 99acres who's into technology only, or anybody else, we have to keep doing more and more of it, right? And I think somebody mentioned that we've jumped a decade in technology adoption in some aspects, and I think the sooner all of us adopt it, wholeheartedly, I think that will only benefit us in our respective roles and companies. Investing on your own site is something which came up as an interesting point, that a lot of builders can do more to kind of make their sites more robust, more informative. I think the whole point around technology adoption in the form of virtual visits, not being the final thing, but being a way to engage your buyers and making sure that they are getting that convenience from your side will probably become, more and more important. And somebody mentioned that, some people in the family will come for the physical visit, but a few other family members may, take the virtual visit, right? So I think all these technology adoptions, even in the context of bookings, it was another interesting factor that some of the panelists mentioned that, bookings sometimes, happen and then a physical visit happens, right? Normally we would think the other way around, that you'll make a visit and then you will do a booking, right? Now some of that is also changing. Although those booking amounts may be small today, which are happening online, but they're still nevertheless happening. And that's another trend which is interesting to see. And getting closer and closer to your consumer in these times to make sure you're understanding their mind space, you're understanding what is really preventing them from taking that next step of transacting, whether it's some flexibility in payment plans, whether it's a small town nuance versus a big city nuance. I think some of those interesting points also came up, which I think all the panelists who are from the builder and channel partner and broker community will really, I think, benefit from keeping that in mind when they are engaging with their prospects. So thank you so much to all the panelists as well as to all our participants. We had almost, I think, 550 or so participants coming across the country, largely from builders teams and brokers and channel partners. And this is a, Realty Buzz is a monthly webinar series we do at 99 Acres now. And at times we focus on topics which are more relevant for our builder and channel partner and broker community. And at times we do a more B2C webinar, which is focused more on helping buyers with some of their, direct questions. So thank you so much to everybody. And, please do follow our Facebook and Twitter handles to keep updated about the next webinar. And you'll be able to, easily track us from there. Once again, Rohit, Shantanu, Varun, Shailesh, Arya, thank you so much for your time. And wishing everybody a safe and happy weekend.